President James A. Garfield is mostly remembered for a series of bizarre and ultimately deadly events that began 131 years ago tomorrow. Here's Rocca to tell the story.
Of the 4 U.S. presidents who have been assassinated, 2, Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy, are engraved in our collective memory. William McKinley had already been president a full term when he was murdered at the turn of the 20th century. But James A. Garfield, in office less than 4 months when he was shot in 1881, is for most Americans an historical footnote. And that, says author Candace Millard, is a great shame.
He was, without question, one of the most extraordinary men ever elected president. He was absolutely brilliant. You know, he was born into incredible poverty.
In a log cabin.
In a log cabin, the last of the log cabin presidents. His father died before he was 2 years old, and so to put himself through college, his first year, he was a janitor and a carpenter. By his second year, they made him assistant professor of literature and ancient languages. By the time he was 26, he was this college's president. It was just one of these astonishing things. He just had an off-the-charts mind.
His loss is all the more heartbreaking, Millard writes in her recent book, because Garfield didn't need to die, even after he was shot. A Civil War hero and 9-term congressman, Garfield was drafted by fellow Republicans to run for president, an office he never sought.
He called the presidency a bleak mountain. He knew that it was going to be a very difficult and lonely position to be in. And, you know, this is the height of the spoils system.
The spoils system, under which anyone could petition the president in person for a government job, regardless of experience or ability. And so, could anyone just show up at the White House?
They could. I mean, he would have like 100 office seekers every day.
Charles Guiteau was one of those office seekers. Delusional and grandiose, he drifted through life.
This is a man who had failed at everything he had tried, and he had tried everything. You know, he had tried law, he had tried evangelism, he'd even tried a free love commune in the 1800s, and he had failed there too. You know, the women there had nicknamed him Charles Get Out.
Guiteau thought he should be named minister to France. Day after day, he visited the White House, even meeting Garfield once. But when his demand wasn't met,
he had what he believed was a divine inspiration, a message from God that he needed to kill the president. And, you know, this is 16 years after Lincoln's assassination, but there's still no Secret Service protection.
On July 2nd, 1881, the president was scheduled to travel by train from D.C. to Massachusetts.
And so Guiteau woke up early that morning, and he went to the train station, and he had his shoes shined, and he was ready with his gun and his papers.
Shoes shined?
Yeah, because he was very aware of the attention he would be receiving.
The president, along with 2 of his sons, arrived at the station.
So they walk in, Garfield takes just a few steps, Guiteau steps out of the shadows and shoots him twice, once in the arm and once in the back.
But the gunshot is not fatal.
It's not. It doesn't hit his spinal cord, it doesn't hit any vital organs.
Within minutes, doctors converged on the fallen president, using their fingers to poke and prod his open wounds.
12 different doctors inserted unsterilized fingers and instruments in Garfield's back, probing for this bullet. And the first examination took place on the train station floor. I mean, you can't imagine a more germ-infested environment.
American doctors at the time didn't believe germs existed at all. And according to Dr. Jeffrey Resnick of the National Library of Medicine, they rejected the use of antiseptics pioneered by Joseph Lister, for whom Listerine would later be named.
Lister, an Englishman, embraced this theory in the early 1860s based upon the fact that it's germs that cause disease. American doctors did not believe in the Listerian theory because they subscribed to the miasma theory. Bad air caused disease and illness, not germs. Germs you couldn't see.
On the scene at the train station, cabinet member Robert Todd Lincoln. Present at his father's death 16 years before, he would also witness the murder of McKinley 20 years later.
Of the 4 presidential assassinations, he was there for 3 of them.
A pretty ghoulish distinction.
That's right. It's unfortunate.
It was Lincoln who summoned Dr. D. Willard Bliss. The D stood for doctor, his actual first name.
And Bliss was a uniquely arrogant and ambitious man, and he just took charge.
There would be no second opinions. For an excruciating 80 days, made even worse by the sweltering Washington summer, Garfield suffered stoically as his condition worsened.
He is riddled with infection at this point. He has these abscesses all through his body.
And he was starving to death. Unable to keep down the sumptuous meals he was being fed, the president's weight plunged from 210 pounds to 130. In a panic to find the bullet still lodged in Garfield, Bliss called on Alexander Graham Bell. Yes, that Bell, the inventor of the telephone. Bell's task? Use the metal detector he'd invented to find the bullet so it could once and for all be extracted. But unbeknownst to Bell, Garfield was lying on a bed made of metal springs, rare at the time.
Which is obviously going to affect a metal detector. But worse than that, Bliss believed and had publicly stated that the bullet was on the right side of the president's body, and he would only let Bell examine that part of the president's body. And of course, the bullet had gone to the left.
Once again, just willful ignorance?
You know, it's just one of the incredible dangers of ambition, you know, and he did not want to be proven wrong.
President Garfield finally died on September 19th, 1881. The autopsy confirmed Bliss's ignorance.
President Garfield didn't have to die. President Garfield died because of what his doctors did and what they didn't do.
But from this senseless horror came good. The use of antiseptics was quickly accepted by American doctors. Civil service reform was enacted. And perhaps even more significantly,
one of the most important things that happened is it really brought the country together for the first time since the Civil War.
it connected the North and the South?
It did. It did. It healed this deep, deep, deep wound because there was this common sorrow and this understanding of loss.
As for the man who shot the president, Charles Guiteau would be hanged, only aware at the very end that he would not be celebrated for killing the president. There's a quote in your book from Guiteau where he says something like, "It's the doctors that murdered Garfield."
That's right. He says, you know, yes, I shot him, but his doctors killed him.
This insane person actually says something sane.
That's right. And it's true. Unfortunately, it's absolutely true.